Hello, and welcome back to Feel Good Alcohol Free. I'm Lindsay Henneke, sober coach and founder of Feel Good AF, a 13-week group program for high-achieving women who want to let go of shame, reclaim their confidence, and quit drinking for good. Today, we're talking about something that doesn't get enough airtime, the emotional cycle of quitting drinking. Not just the day you finally stop, but everything that leads up to that moment and what comes up for you after. You may have heard me say this before, but quitting drinking is only about 10% of the not drinking part. The rest is emotional sobriety. Learning how to actually feel and manage your emotions without outsourcing them to alcohol. This is what the women who I work with dive deep into. It can be scary, messy, and it's definitely the most time-consuming part of quitting drinking. But it's also the most rewarding, which is why having support and accountability and different perspectives to help you navigate through it is so incredibly important. Okay, so the short version, quitting drinking is not linear. It's not clean. And it usually starts months, if not years, before your last day one. And now let's dive into the not so short version. I'm often asked the question, how did you just quit? And the answer is that I didn't just quit. How much time do you have is usually my initial response. If you're in this, no matter what stage, phase, or point, you already know that most people don't just quit. We don't wake up one day and it's all sorted out. It takes time and a lot of thinking, a lot of trial and error. And yes, that includes some slips. But we find our footing and we find our support system and we find our path forward towards an alcohol-free life. But before we jump in, I want to give a little love to the woman who is so tired of thinking about her drinking. Like, actually exhausted. And not necessarily from the hangovers, though, let's be honest, those do not help, but from the mental chatter, the negotiating, that inner tug of war, that loop of, should I drink tonight? I mean, it's Thursday, but I've had a rough week and I skipped one on Tuesday, so I kind of earned it. But I told myself I'd only drink on weekends. Ugh, why is this so hard? Okay, I was there for years. And talking about waiting until Thursday is generous if I'm talking about myself. I was often believing I deserved a medal if I made it to Tuesday night after a long weekend of overdoing it. And to this woman, I also want to say, I had rules. I had so many rules. Only drink on weekends, unless of course it was a holiday or a Friday night, or I had a stressful day, or someone invited me to brunch, or I just really wanted to. And guess what? I always really wanted to, or at least I thought I did. It was like living with a full-time lawyer in my brain, constantly making the case for and against the next glass of wine. Or, as my friend Deb said in an earlier episode, it's like the news updates running along the bottom of the screen. Constant chatter, constant negotiations, constant noise, and that is exhausting. So, if you're in that phase where you haven't quit yet, but you think about it all the time, please hear me. You are not the only one stuck in this mental loop, and there is nothing wrong with you. This is really part of the process. It doesn't mean that you're failing. In fact, try to be kind to yourself. Try looking at it from a different perspective. It means something in you is waking up. You're starting to see that alcohol might not be working for you anymore. And that awareness, even if it's uncomfortable, is a powerful beginning. Today, we're going to walk through the emotional phases of quitting drinking, and there are 5 of them. Not to overwhelm you, but to help you understand yourself, to normalize what you're feeling, and to give you the tools and love you need to keep going. As I mentioned before, this is a non-linear journey, and it's not the same for everyone. But there are certain shared patterns and experiences that we see over and over again in this work. This is a packed episode, so I want you to settle in. We're going to cover the years leading up to quitting, the awkward in-between stage, what emotions come up when you finally stop, and most importantly, how to take care of yourself through it all. So let's get into it. Okay, phase one, the moderation Olympics. I am not going to go too deep into moderation. There's a whole other episode on that, episode 6, but I am going to walk you through the emotional side of what happens when we're stuck in what I lovingly call the moderation Olympics. This is a phase so many of us spend actual years training for without realizing. We never actually win. And when I say years, I mean there is research out there that shows people stay in this phase for 10 years or more. And I know that I was one of them. This is the era of endless negotiation. Just one glass tonight. Only drinking on weekends. No more tequila, just wine. Wine only with dinner, except on vacation, or when my friend's visiting, or when I've had a long day. It's like trying to go on this strict diet while keeping cupcakes in your purse at all times. You're trying to be good, but the temptation is always right there. And half the time, you've already taken a bite before you even remember the plan. So, what makes this phase so deeply draining isn't just the broken rules. It's the quiet betrayal that you feel afterward. Every time you go against your own word, even in the smallest ways, it leaves a crack in your self-trust. You start wondering, why can't I just be normal? Why does this seem so easy for everyone else? What's wrong with me? And those questions, they're heavy. They don't just float away. They linger. They reshape how you see yourself because moderation isn't just about drinking less. It's often a way of avoiding the deeper stuff, the real stuff, the anxiety you don't want to feel, the loneliness you'd rather numb, or the restlessness that sneaks in when you slow down even for just a second. Alcohol becomes this sneaky, familiar escape hatch, not just a way to push the hard feelings down, but a way to avoid asking why they're there in the first place. And when we keep alcohol in our lives like this, we are not building new ways to cope. We're not strengthening our emotional resilience. We're just pressing pause, delaying the healing by delaying the feeling. I often say that drinking alcohol is just a form of procrastination. And the longer that we do that, the more we live in this strange emotional limbo, never fully escaping the discomfort, but never fully facing it either. And while it can temporarily ease the pain, it takes a toll. Over time, the broken promises pile up, and so does the shame. Even when no one else sees it, you are carrying it. And that quiet little voice doesn't just whisper, you feel it in your stomach, in your sleep, in the way you look at yourself the next day. You can't trust yourself. If you're in this phase, just remember that this isn't a character flaw. It's a sign that you are ready for change. You are simply doing what you've been taught to do, reaching for what's easy when what you're feeling is hard. This is what you've been taught. This doesn't make you a failure. It just means that there's a part of you that's waking up, a part of you that is craving something more honest, more whole. And that is a very powerful place for you to begin. Okay, let's move into phase 2. This can't be that bad, right? So you're not necessarily waving the white flag yet, but you are starting to squint a little harder at your wine glass, wondering why it's always in your hand. There is something stirring inside of you. This is where things can get a little interesting. You might not be shouting from the rooftops that you are done with drinking just yet, but inside there is a quiet voice starting to whisper, wait a second. Do I even like this anymore? Emotionally, this part can feel like standing in the doorway of two worlds. On one side, you have your familiar routines, your coping mechanism, your normal. On the other side, this fuzzy, mysterious version of life without alcohol that you sort of want, but you're afraid of it. You sort of fear it. There's some denial, some rationalization. A few bold declarations like, well, technically I don't drink that much, or everyone drinks like this. I'm just being dramatic. But the truth is, you're beginning to notice how much space alcohol takes up. Not just in your body, but in your brain. The planning, the recovery, the constant math equation of, if I drink tonight, I'll feel off tomorrow, but I don't have any big meetings, so maybe it's fine. It's exhausting. And more than that, it's starting to feel misaligned. This is also when the inner tug of war kicks up a notch. You want change, but you're scared of what that change will cost you. Who will I be without it? Will people still want to hang out with me? Will it be fun? Will I be fun? Will I be bored? Left out? Different? These questions are loud, but so are the glimmers of truth that keep poking through. Small thoughts that appear when you are out for a walk or doing the dishes, relaxing with your family, or even when you're pouring yourself that drink. The ones that say, you're craving more. You're not crazy for wanting to feel better. And maybe, just maybe, alcohol isn't helping you feel the way you think it should. If you're here right now, this is a beautiful stage. It means your awareness is rising. You're beginning to challenge the default. And even if your actions haven't changed yet, your perspective has, which means something big is already in motion. Let yourself embrace this stage. Be kind to yourself and be open to the idea that you're on your way there. For me, this phase hit really hard in the early months of the pandemic. Like so many others, I fell into this rhythm that revolved completely around work, food, the news, and of course, drinking. I had daytime pajamas and I had nighttime pajamas. It was just me, the couch, and a drink in my hand every single night. And the truth is, my whole adult life had been built around alcohol in some way. But in 2020, that routine really hit a new level. From March to July, I probably drank more than I ever had before. But I have a little twist. I also read more Quit Lit during those same months than ever before. I know, right? It sounds counterintuitive. But while my drinking had become more present in my life than ever, I was starting to recognize the impact it was having on me. And I was looking to learn more about why that was and how I could change. It was this interesting and sometimes frustrating dichotomy. Drinking every night, but at the same time, I had actually built a whole new routine around Quit Lit. I remember crawling into bed at night, excited, genuinely excited to open The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. It reminded me how I felt when I read my first Quit Lit book by Rebecca Weller. Every page felt like it had been written about me. Okay, side note, I am asked all the time about my favorite Quit Lit, so don't worry, I will share my top 5 favorite books in the show notes. Okay, but as I was reading each night, there was something so comforting, almost addictive, about hearing my own thoughts mirrored back to me. I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next, like I was reading my own story. And when she started talking about life on the other side of drinking, I started to picture myself there too. And that's what Quit Lit gave me. It gave me permission, not because I needed somebody else's approval to say no to alcohol, but because it made the whole thing feel more human, more possible, and honestly, way less shameful. It wasn't just me having these thoughts or making these decisions. I wasn't the first or only woman out there struggling with alcohol. That's part of why I share so much of my own story now, because I want women to feel what I felt in those moments. The comfort in community, the shared experience, and also hope. You also deserve to want something more. Even if you aren't totally sure what that more is for you right now. And it's okay if you need to borrow belief from someone else while you figure that out. I love sharing my belief in you until you believe in yourself. I look back at this stage in my life with such love and compassion for myself. Something was waking up inside of me. I had this burning ache for change, and for the first time, I actually knew what that change was. I wanted to be alcohol free. I didn't know how. I didn't even believe it was fully possible. This want that I had, it was scary. It scared me. There was so much fear around letting go of alcohol. I was afraid of the thing I most deeply desired. I was afraid of failing, afraid of saying it out loud. And I had 1,000 voices in my head shouting back at me, "You? Quit drinking? Please, you're fine. Don't overreact. This is just a phase. You don't really mean it. And still, underneath all of those voices was this spark, a new kind of energy. For the first time, I wasn't trying to prove I could moderate. I was curious what life could look like if I didn't need alcohol at all. It was actually a refreshing mindset shift. And the more I read about sobriety and the more I thought about what my life could be like if I gave up alcohol, the competitive A-typer inside me really started to shine. I was ready for a challenge. Now, to be clear, I didn't quit overnight. This takes time, so be patient. I drank every single day in June and July. I still felt stuck, but I also knew I was setting myself up for something bigger. I picked a start date, August 10th, 2020, and as I inched closer to it, the emotional roller coaster got real. Now, if picking a date feels good to you and helps you mentally prepare for a break, then why not give it a try? But I want you to know that if you have a slip after that date, it's not failing. There were plenty of times before that I had set dates and ended up returning to drinking. As is the case with other tools we use to help ourselves, we have to find the methods that work for us, but not fixate on the ones that don't. I do believe it to be true that there isn't a perfect date to stop drinking. But when you recognize your last day one, it can be a really powerful thing. This is also something I talk a lot about with my clients, and it is something we could absolutely explore together. Okay, but back to the summer of 2020. I was feeling all over the place as I started to realize that my time with alcohol was hopefully about to come to an end. But the most reassuring piece was that I also started to believe I could do it. I'd never felt that before. I felt worried about the unknown, but I felt moved to take the step and trust myself. And that's what I want for you too. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to light that little fire inside you that says, I want this. I'm ready for more. Okay, let's move to phase 3, the sober, curious spark. This is the moment that the light bulb flickers on. You're scrolling, reading, listening, minding your business when suddenly something hits you right in the chest. A sentence, a podcast episode, a woman sharing her story. And for the first time you think, wait, that sounds like me. This is the beginning of something. You might not even realize how big it is yet, but there's a spark, a thread. And once you start pulling it, you can't stop. Emotionally, this phase is a beautiful swirl. Hope. What if there's a different way? Curiosity. Could I actually do this? Empowerment. Maybe I'm not broken. Maybe I'm just, human. And also panic. Because once you start to imagine a life without alcohol, a whole new set of questions floods in. How do people even go out without drinking? What do I do on Friday nights? Am I allowed to change my mind about something I've built my whole identity around? You might start experimenting. Maybe you take a break, a weekend, a dry January, a random Tuesday where you decide not to pour the wine. And in those moments, you start to feel it. The space, the clarity, the way your body sighs in relief. But you also feel the wobble, like you've just taken off a backpack you've worn for years. It's both liberating and unnerving. That's the magic of this phase. You are relearning what it means to be with yourself. And even though it's a little scary, it's also kind of exciting because deep down, something in you knows this is more than a break. This is the beginning of becoming someone new. Okay, I vividly recall the moment when the term sober curious first sparked something inside me. It was my friend and coworker at the time, the same one I used to joke about having one too many glasses of wine with, who suggested we read A Happier Hour by Rebecca Weller. Until then, I had never heard of the term sober curious or knew there was a book by a woman about quitting drinking. This was not on my radar. I remember sort of rolling my eyes and saying, I don't think this book is for us. But we both read it. I finished this book in like 2 days. I could not put it down. And soon after, my friend and I decided we're on a break. We're taking a break from alcohol. And this time felt different. It wasn't just another health kick like my previous times when I would take a break, 30-day challenge here or whatever, all of which ended predictably on day 31 with a glass of wine that always turned into a bottle. Rebecca Weller's story resonated deeply with me because her journey mirrored my own. For nearly a month, I navigated work trips, dinners out, and even a holiday party. This break happened in December. On my 40th birthday, which was Christmas Eve, it was either day 28 or 29 of the break. I can't really remember. I drank, and I drank excessively. It marked the beginning of my journey after years of trying to moderate. If you're currently in the moderation phase, know that it's a vital part of your journey, gathering all kinds of insights along the way. For me, reading Rebecca's book was sort of a turning point. It prompted me to stop setting strict rules for myself and start imagining a life completely free from alcohol. It's at this phase when a lot of women decide to work with me. It's the point where you have sort of started experimenting a little with not drinking. You know that you want more and that living alcohol free is calling to you, but you are lacking the tools to get there. Just not drinking doesn't cut it. You need to learn the skills to turn this spark into a sustainable change in your life, to help build a foundation that is going to hold the weight that comes with being a human being, especially as you start to work through the emotions and struggles you were using alcohol to cope with. Okay, let's dive into the next phase. Phase 4. Sitting with the not so fun. Okay, this is the part no one puts on Instagram. The shiny day one pics are posted. The mocktail recipes are saved. Maybe even a few AF weekends have gone by. And then, bam, the feelings hit. Hard, unfiltered, raw, and bigger than you remember. You realize how much alcohol buffered you from the full intensity of your own inner world. Loneliness feels louder. Boredom feels unbearable. Overstimulation makes you want to crawl out of your skin. This is where a lot of women bounce. Not because they're weak or not committed, but because no one warned them it would feel like this. What's happening here is actual growth, but it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like chaos. This is where emotional resilience starts to build, not in some big empowering moment, but in the quiet, uncomfortable ones. Like when you're sitting on the couch, restless, craving a drink, not for the taste, but for the escape, and instead you don't. You feel it. You ride it out. You cry, journal, go for a walk, breathe through it, even if it's messy. And even though it doesn't feel like a victory, it is. But here's something that makes this process more manageable. Boundaries. Boundaries are where we begin to protect the space we're creating. They are how we say, this matters to me. And in this phase, they're not just helpful, they're essential. You start setting limits on the energy you give, on the people you say yes to, on the environments that drain you or push you back toward coping. At first, this feels clunky. You might over-explain, apologize, second-guess yourself. But like any practice, boundaries get stronger the more you use them. And the more you use them, the more you start to feel something new. Peace, clarity, a quiet knowing that you're finally honoring your needs. And that's often where I meet clients, right at that edge where they're starting to realize this isn't just about drinking. One woman I worked with told me she was dreading a conversation with her husband. Wine had been their thing. They'd split a bottle most nights while watching a show or just winding down from the day. She was afraid that not drinking was going to change their vibe, or worse, make things awkward or distant between them. She hit a wall one night. She was 3 weeks alcohol-free, sitting next to him while he poured a glass of wine, and she just felt resentful. Not because he was drinking, but because she hadn't said a word about how hard it was. So the next day, she told him, I need a break from alcohol in the house for a while. I'm not asking you to quit, but I need this boundary to feel steady. Now, it wasn't some big emotional moment. It was direct, it was honest, and he respected it. He stopped keeping wine in the house. They started taking walks after dinner instead of drinking. This is where the beautiful part happens. Their connection didn't fall apart. It actually became more real because she stopped trying to silently hold it all together, and finally said out loud to him what she needed. That's the thing about boundaries in early sobriety. They're not about controlling other people. They're about creating space for you to actually do the work. And more often than not, the people who love you, they are going to rise to meet you there. So if this phase feels raw, remember, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you're failing. You are learning to stay, to feel, to trust that you can handle whatever comes up and choose what supports you. That's when the real strength starts to grow, my friend. Okay, we're going to rock into phase 5, the emotional roller coaster. That's actually healing. This is the phase where your emotions are all over the place, and you might be wondering, is this normal? One day you feel on fire, clear-headed, confident, proud, you're sleeping better, you're feeling lighter, you're finally seeing glimpses of the version of you who doesn't need alcohol, and then the next day, boom, a wave of sadness, regret, grief. You're hit with memories, emotions you thought were past, or a deep ache you can't quite name. Let me say this clearly. This is not you doing it wrong. This is you healing. You're not just removing a beverage. You're shedding a coping mechanism that's been tightly woven into your identity, your habits, your emotions, your relationships. Of course, it's going to feel like a lot. This is the real work of emotional sobriety, learning to feel everything without needing to numb it. It's not always glamorous, but it is transformational. You're learning that you can sit with hard emotions and not fall apart, that you can feel anger or regret or grief and you can stay grounded, that you don't have to run, explain, fix, or drink it away. And here's where the tools become lifelines. Journaling to process the thoughts going on inside your head, nervous system regulation to create calm where your body is on edge, safe connection with other women who get it, coaching that helps you reframe, reset, and move forward, community that reflects back your progress when you can't see it yourself. And we can't talk about this phase without revisiting boundaries, because now you're not just reacting to emotions, you're getting curious about why they show up. You begin to notice your unmet needs. You tune into the situations that drain you, the people that push your buttons, the roles you feel stuck performing. You start asking, what am I saying yes to that I don't actually want? Where am I shrinking or people pleasing? What stories am I still believing that keep me playing small? This is where we dive deep into the work I do with women in my group program. Balancing your needs, setting aligned boundaries, releasing resentment, and challenging limiting beliefs, and rebuilding your trust in yourself. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a practice, a process, a journey back to your center. But every emotional wave you ride, every truth you claim, every time you choose you over the pattern, you're becoming the woman who doesn't just survive without alcohol, she thrives. Whew! I know that was a lot. We've covered emotional layers, coping mechanisms, raw truths, and the deep inner work it takes to break free from alcohol's grip. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you're not alone. Take a deep breath and maybe give a little smile. I want to acknowledge something really important here. This work takes energy, emotional energy, mental energy, the kind of energy most people never even see because it's happening behind the scenes in your heart and in your head. So if you're showing up for yourself right now, if you're listening, reflecting, or even just wondering if something needs to change, that's already brave. And you don't have to overhaul your life today. Let's just start with 2 small but powerful shifts you can try right now. Okay, because you know I love giving you a homework assignment. Number 1, name the emotion, don't numb it. The next time you feel the pull to pour a drink, pause, ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Is this stress, loneliness, overwhelm? Give the emotion a name and let it breathe. Because once you name it, it loses a little bit of its power. It goes from this vague, uncomfortable thing to something you can work with, something you can feel instead of run and hide from. You don't have to fix the emotion. Don't judge it. Just witness it. Number 2, celebrate the tiny wins. Your brain is wired to notice what's going wrong, to dwell on the slip-ups and overlook the progress. Let's interrupt that pattern. Start celebrating the tiniest victories like, I made it through a craving. I felt anxious and didn't reach for a glass. I texted a friend instead of isolating. I gave myself grace instead of shame. These moments matter. They're not small, they're foundational. And when you string together enough of them, that's what builds momentum. That's what builds belief. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. But if you're starting to see that alcohol is taking more than it's giving, if you're starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, there's a freer version of you on the other side, that's the thread. I want you to pull it. If you're in this work, if you've been questioning your relationship with alcohol, if you've been riding the waves of emotion, trying to make sense of what all this means, I want you to hear this. You're not the problem. You're navigating something hard with the tools you've been given. You are waking up. You are healing. This journey isn't linear, and it's not about perfection. It's about choosing honesty over hiding, choosing compassion over shame, peace over pretending. Every single phase we talked through today, they're part of the process. They're not signs that you're failing. They are signs you are growing. And if there's something inside you that's whispering, I want more than this, I promise you, you can have it. You don't have to do it alone. Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode spoke to you, if it gave you a glimmer of hope or helped you feel a little more understood, I would love it if you'd take a moment to rate, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone who might need it too. And if you're ready for deeper support, if you're tired of being stuck in the cycle and want help getting unstuck, I'd love to connect with you. The women inside Feel Good AF, they are working on this emotional roller coaster together with support and new tools to break the cycle. You can book a free discovery call with me through the link in the show notes. We'll talk about where you are, what you want, and how I can support you. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next right step. I believe in you, and I am so glad you're here. That's it for me for this week. I will see you next week.